Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of What If Civilization Started Over. In the last episode, we saw a big war happening over here. It was kind of big, kind of, sort of. Um, I forgot what else. Oh yeah, the thing with China happened over here. A lot of stuff just focused on over in this region, although there was like some genocides in over here. But that's beside the point. All right. let's get started with this episode. We'll start off on the power rankings actually, as we see once again Sumatra has retaken the number one spot, and they're happy about this. A big, almost like Cold War, is developing between Sumatra and Caribbean. Well, that's what it would seem like actually. But in reality, these two are quite friendly with each other. Um, Also over here, I'm gonna make a quick change to this. There's a lot less of a gap at this point. And the gap is actually now closer to right here, although it is probably more. It is probably still, or it is still a larger gap, but the top five nations, which are Indonesia, Caribbean, West Mexico, Adriatic Union, and Mesopotamia, these five are all pretty equal in strength. I'm not feeling entirely too well, which is why my voice sounds probably a bit raspy. Um, and also I'm a bit quieter, so it's almost 11 p.m. All right, so I have a diplomacy wars of episode 55, and I told someone they predicted a canon event, and well, congratulations to Coppin. Wait, CAP. The I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. The captain. I don't know. You you know who I'm talking about if it is he. I'm I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but either way, uh, congrats on correctly predicting that West Mexico invades California. These two used to be pretty close with each other, and then they kind of differed from each other. Um, after after the war, they had separate ideas, especially with like land disputes in this region. California wanted a lot of that, but obviously they didn't get that. Oh, Oregon wanted that. But spare you guys a long peace treaty. So wouldn't you believe it? It's full annexation. Next time, don't put your capital so close to the third strongest country in the world's border. Alright, so now we have three. Alright, and actually, so we've talked about Sumatra, we've talked about Caribbean, we've talked about West Mexico, and now guess what? We're going to talk about the Adriatic Union. And what about them? Well, they're adding a new country to their union. In that country, it's going to be Italy. Who else would it be? Well, it's actually also these guys. Yeah, both of these two countries join. Makes for a very interesting set of circumstances here. Um, lastly, we come down here because why wouldn't we talk about Mesopotamia next? And they aren't exactly happy with the peace treaty or big the Great Atlantic War. However, they can't really invade these guys. So what do? They decide to instead invade Egypt again. And once they take the capital, Egypt completely falls over. And what do you know? More full annexation. Alright, so yeah, we have a lot of quick and like really shorter wars. However, now we have a bit of a bigger war going on ish. It's not the biggest war we've ever seen, eh, but it is the biggest war of this episode. As we are coming back to Caribbean because they invaded this I don't know what to call this country. But this time they're not the only ones invading, as the southern blue Chilean nation also decides to get involved. And before the green team can do anything, they take over. They've taken over all of this land here. They capture the capital, but actually Caribbean is perfectly fine with this because they only wanted some of the land in this northern part. So we'll take a look at what this peace treaty will look like because why? I don't know. All right, so here we have what the peace treaty looks like. I think this is a pretty fairly split. I think it does lean more towards Caribbean getting more land, but it's pretty even. Blue Chile finally got to use their military. And also, here's your daily reminder that this border does not line up. Alright, but now we are actually going to talk about Sumatra, because why wouldn't we? Well, kind of. We'll we'll talk about them later, actually. But for now, we'll talk about Baikal. They are going on yet another conquest. And who are they? Who are we invading this time? Well, if you guessed Central Asia or here, I don't know what to call these guys. Um, they're not really Kazakhstan, are they? Um, they've decided they invade these guys because supposedly there's uranium over here, and well, they want to start making nukes. Well, we haven't really talked about nukes in a while, have we? But I've got. We'll do nuclear updates in the next episode, which also probably would have happened during this episode. I just have a lot that I want to get through during this episode. So, but, we actually see the pink team meets up with this lake over here before taking the capital. But then they dart across here. They take over this major city, closing around the capital. However, the gold team actually is going to put up a fight, unlike most other nations. This episode. However, they lose major city after major city, and eventually one of those major cities becomes the capital. However, they still keep fighting, and we actually do see Caspia over here gets involved because they don't want the whole nation to fall over to the fascists because they are a communist nation. So they move in the north here. They take this major city here. The forces agree not to fight each other despite their absolute hatred for each other. But Caspia is Caspia takes about all of this. You take a bit more of here, but the rest falls over to Baikal. And yet again, we are taking a look at another peace treaty. All right, so here we have the peace treaty. uh, we see Baikal gets a lot of the land out of this, mainly due to the fact that they are the ones that started this war. When the peace treaty for it was held, um, like they brought this up and it kind of helped them get more land out of it. Um, Caspia definitely is not happy about this though. But Caspia got something very valuable out of this war. I will not be showing. I will not be telling what it was. It will be revealed in due time. All right. So the next thing that we see going on is actually going to be coming back down to Caribbean. Going on here, Caribbean will officially be dang it. Well, Caribbean officially switches to a fascist ideology. But someone over here is also switching to communism. America. Er, where's Egypt and over here. Sorry about this. I got distracted. If you can tell, I do this a lot. Alright. Alright. I guess we'll go back for always going on the wrong layer. Once again, why would I be on the right one? Well, actually, we're gonna talk about something different. Yeah. Never. Well, never mind about that one. Talk about these two. These two here. We'll start off with the blue team, or not the blue team. Seafoam Sudan, as they do a lot of the no stuff. And they do a lot of genocide in this region. They kind of slow down on doing it in the yellow area, except for on the smaller yellow religion. They still do it in the yellow area. And similar thing with Libya. They also she wasn't that a smart thing. Alright, so Libya also does this. However, right in here, this isn't fun. Cause well, too far. 'Cause, Switzerland or the green Switzerland country. They did these genocides here in the Libyan territory. But now Libya is doing genocides back. But Green Switzerland does not like that. So it kind of raises a bit of tensions between the two of them. But Libya becomes the largest country entirely under one religion, I think, probably. I mean, just already they're like one of the largest countries in the world. Probably only behind like Baikal for sure. Probably Caribbean, maybe West Mexico, maybe the Great Mozambique country. But like that's really it. Alright, alright. Well, now we move on to our next event, which is probably one of the biggest events we have seen in a while. Eh, um, it's been a hot minute. We see Caspia. Well, they pull a Simpsons, and they kind of predict the future. What they had taken from Baikal was a lot of their equipment, their tanks, their, uh, like some of their uniforms, their gear, and they are starting to stage an attack right over here in the Tibetan border. But they're just a bit too late for that, as we see Baikal will invade Tibet. However, the one thing Tibet has in their favor right now is they're a very liked nation, and because of the genocides that kind of went on up here, a lot of people don't like Baikal. And before they get much further than this, we see Baikal will be getting a coalition formed on them. Now, I forgot to actually do this. I was going to do that in the peace treaty, but we have a new layer forming. It's been a while since I've done a new layer. This is our coalition layer. And this is so you don't get it mixed up with the alliances. But it'll start with Tibet, obviously. Caspia, um, India joins it even, because their people were genocided on here. South China, Myanmar. But at this point, like, it's to the point where my call can handle it. Red China joins, it's starting to get a little wavery. Now you have Gujarat, this Gujarat nation, I think it was pronounced like that. So now it's becoming a bit more risky. Then these guys join it. And now it's pretty, oops, now it's pretty even. Actually, I think even though, never mind. But, well, actually, no. The Circle Coalition definitely has the advantage here. Central China joins it then. And we have Korea joining it. And then this country here. And the final nail in the coffin is Sumatra joins against against them. However, we do see one very dumb nation making a choice. Well, actually, it's not just one dumb nation. We see a couple that, and these nations come to the side of Baikal. They are Siberia. Most surprisingly, we have Persia over here. Another kind of surprising one is we have Vietnam, and we also have, well, the island survivors kind of do, but they don't really. So I'm actually not going to mark them. But we have one more nation that helps out by call, and that is Caucasia. Right, so this is a very big coalition that we have here. Very big. Alright. But this is definitely, this does go in the blue team's favor, and I will be calling these by blue and red for coalitions. However, Tibet still doesn't have their military like fully ready. However, somebody who does have their military ready is Sumatra. So you see Sumatra pushing up here. They they definitely wanted these lands a while ago. They do this before we even see like Tibet or anyone else really pushing into these lands. The next country we see joining is South China, or not joining, but like the next country we see invading is China or South China. So this is China. And then we see Korea. And they especially focus on up here because this is like the Korean religion, or where the Korean religion was. Nobody actually remembers that though. I don't even remember when the religion map was formed. It was probably formed in between episode 1 and 2, but er, we see this famous route becoming useful once again. If you guys don't know, there's a trade route here, and in a lot of episodes in the past, this became a very big thing between Baikal and China, Red China. And speaking of Red China, they are the next ones to make a move. So despite setting up all of their military and stuff, we now see Caspia being the next one to make a move. However, they don't invade Baikal. So they have three fronts they're fighting on. And their main focus is going to be Caucasia. So they push into Caucasia quite a lot. One of their big goals is actually going to be to get the Black Sea, access to the Black Sea. So that means they can now trade in international waters. So, very good. However, we do see Persia actually being a very well done nation. I don't know how to, but they want access to the Caspian for who knows what reason. But yeah, they take over some of this land up here. However, they only really focus on Caspia. They don't really care about actually helping out these guys. They only are focusing on Caspia. But in Caucasia, we see them actually fighting back against Caspia, mainly because Caspia is sending forces down fight too, but still. And we actually see Caucasia stealing some of the Caspian ships and making a landing over here because I said so. Yes, I'm pulling that one line out of Ada's prose video. Wait, I don't remember which one it was. Right. But yeah. So Caspia is actually getting pushed back, and well, who expected this? I did. I didn't. I'm being honest. I created this whole thing, and I didn't even expect this. Mainly because like I just added it. But all right, let's focus on the main threat here. Well, Siberia up here, they aren't really messed with actually in this war. They're kind of just left alone. The only area where they're actually kind of dealt with is going to be down here. Which I'll just put that, but oh well. You guys are gonna find out soon enough. Alright. Alright, so you see Korea fishing really far into Lake Baikal. Down here we see South China begins to push back up too. And with incoming aid from Sumatra, this is very easy. You know what else is very easy? Invading Vietnam. Well, that's what the Americans thought, but how'd that go? Same thing with Canada or Afghanistan. But this time it actually is a lot easier because Vietnam is actually like really badly set up and doesn't actually have good leaders or anything, so they fell pretty quickly. And we see them pretty easily split between um, Sumatra and South China. Alright. Now up here we see the Dark Cyan team with aid from Korea will manage to take over this island. Which I think this one is Hokkaido. I don't remember. They also take over the Kuril Islands and this southern part of this peninsula. But I totally remember the name. And they actually also do take a little bit up here. But you now see Korea is kind of spreading its forces out a bit too much. They get really close to the capital. The capital, Red China down here, they're pushing back quite a lot. And now we finally see Tibet will begin to push back. Um, whatchamacallit. They finally begin to push back Lake Baikal. Uh, Over here, though, we actually see Caspia fall, or Caspia's capital is captured by Caucasia. But Caspia is Caspia is cooked, but we see the Persians will because the Persians know that Caucasia will go after other nations, so we see them building like pretty much a wall essentially, and they take the land here of this wall, but we do see the rest of this. We see the rest of Caspia is taken over by Caucasia, so good for them. Alright, with Tibet over here, uh, they they push or they push back against Lake Baikal a lot, and now we actually do see another country joining this thing here. Um, they're not. They're also going to avoid Siberia because who actually wants to fight over there? But the sorry, but the nation joining this war obviously is going to be joining on the light blue side, but they are Russia. I'm sure that one was probably expected. Probably unexpected when they didn't join it originally. Alright, so they push in over here. Hmm, This is this is probably the equivalent to the um Caspian coalition, and it's episode 61. I swear I did not mean for that. That is a total coincidence that the so yeah, episode 61 of Adis Prosvik, so fascist Caspia that started doing genocides was coalitioned on after they invaded another country. And then now this episode 61 Lake Baikal coalitioned on after invading yet another country and doing genocides. Mm. Alright, all of this falls over to South China, but we're starting to get to the point where we see this. We're seeing the peace treaty plans are starting to get drawn out, and nations definitely have a lot of like arguments over who gets what, who go like what goes where. But eventually, like Baikal's capital is captured by Korea, and yeah, well, yay if you don't like Baikal. They are a historic nation who's been a pretty important player all throughout the series. But yeah, so they fall. Down here, Tibet, they can take over all of this, and Red China over here, they kind of they don't take over too much more. 'Cause they are still kind of unstable after they also got jumped, kind of. But we see it ending up like this. If you guys, for whatever reason, actually pay attention to the time, you will notice it will be very different because I will be doing the peace treaty and recording this later on. So I am tired. I don't know why I recorded. Well, guys, wait, what? Listen. All right, so here we have prob. This is the longest peace treaty I have ever made. As in, like, this took me the longest time to make. So, let's turn that off to start. All right, so this is gonna look really weird until I turn the layer that I just turned off back on. Oh, would you look at that? Always forgetting. One pixel, or sometimes just too much tolerance. Alright, so we see Caspia looking something like this. I'll just leave that there. So Caucasia gets this out of the peace treaty. Over here, you see Persia has grown quite a lot. They now have a border on the Caspian Sea, and Persia is probably one of the top 10 ranked countries here. Russia, they joined kind of late in the war, but still, they're getting a little bit there. Tibet, they were the ones that kind of started this war. Like, they're the reason the big coalition happened. Ish. Well, that's because Baikal invaded them, but they get a lot out of this too. We'll move on to the new country over here, which they get all of this. They do not actually get these couple of islands. Those will remain over to Baikal. Alright, this orange team here, all of this won't really matter. Most of it, but alright. Up here we have Baikal's part of the peace treaty. So, Lake Baikal, actually, they get off the hook pretty well. They're left with pretty much all of that. Korea over here, they get quite a lot of land out of this. However, they do leave some of their land over for the Dark Scion team up in the north, which we'll get to here in a second. Alright. So yes, the Dark Scion team, they grow quite a lot. Take over, they get these two islands here back, and they even, most importantly probably, get, Hokkaido, I believe that, that's what this island is. But they get that back. And they pretty much control all of this sea area, so good for them. Alright, suppose we'll move down to Red China. So they get all of that. And as for South China, in their troops. Alright, South China gets that. Also, South China gets the eastern half of Vietnam, so we can remove their capital. And Vietnam is the only country in this war that does not exist anymore. Every other country still exists. So in this peace treaty, we gained more countries than we lost. And we gained quite a few more. Alright, Sumatra, they get all of this. I am still a little sick, in case you can't tell, but I am feeling much better. So, that is part of the reason why this took 2 days. Right, Myanmar, they get quite a bit too. Here. And India, you get the lowest amount of land of any country in this war. Not good for any India fans out there. Alright, and now we will turn this layer back on, which definitely helps things look a bit better. Except I forgot China. So, I'm sure most of you guys noticed this layer, and basically, what it is just it just makes things a little bit easier. So I can go through what the countries got and then do all of the new countries or old countries, I should say. Alright, let's give everyone capitals. Because I totally didn't forget major city. These guys had their capital in. These guys lost their capital, so I believe both of these two did as well. Actually, no, you didn't. But you also didn't. You lost your capital, and then for these two, they're gonna have their capitals pretty close to each other. And yeah, that will do it for the war. So I'll let you guys kind of take a second to look at the peace treaty. Definitely not because I'm not pulling up my script or anything. Well, I don't have scripts, but right. So that's actually going to be it for the event of the episode. We just have one thing that might help out. Power rankings. So let's, let's do power rankings. It's been a hot minute since we've done them. I just erased all the capitals. Alright, so power rankings are going to remain pretty similar, but we'll still go through. Number one is Sumatra still, although it is pretty closely tied with Caribbean, and then West Mexico still in third, and they're actually starting to catch up too. So good for them. In number four, we still have the Adriatic Union, and once again in number five, we have Mesopotamia. Now, I'm gonna do something a little different here. There. So, every five or whenever there's a gap, the color will get a bit darker. So there is a gap at number five. So the countries in the top five are are all in the brighter color, which actually helps because all of these countries are on the darker side of colors. And then there's not a big gap for another while. Number six, we have South China. Seventh goes to Australia. Korea has jumped up to eighth. However, ninth we now see is Persia. Good for any Persia fans out there. Sure, there are some. In 10th, we see Switzerland taking this spot. They've been rapidly developing their military. 11th goes to Sweden. 12th, we see it is Russia. not far behind in 13th is Ireland. In 14th, we come all the way down for Mozambique. I'm sure there's Mozambique fans out there. And we see India, despite getting land out of this peace treaty, has fallen to 15th, although they're still pretty equal to where they once were. In the 16th spot, we see Brazil has jumped up quite far. And in 17th, we see uh, this country here. Not far behind in 18th is the Libyans. And then in 19th, we have Seafoam, Sudan. I forget. I believe it was Global who gave me that name. If it wasn't, it was somebody else. Please do tell me. 20th was West Africa. We see Michigan over here has jumped to 21st. And we come back over here, as in 23rd, we have South China, or Central China itself. And actually staying pretty close by here, in 24th is now Caucasia. And lastly, in 25th place, we have Tanzania. Now, one country that used to be pretty high in the power rankings is not in the power rankings. And that country is Istanbul. We will be seeing why in the next episode. So if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.